Oh, thank you so much. Welcome. Welcome everyone to the virtual premiere of Changing Waters, Time for Action on Ocean Acidification, a short film by the International Alliance to Combat Ocean Acidification and Luma Storytelling. My name is Juliana Corrales. I am the communications lead for the OA Alliance, and I will be your moderator today. Thanks so much to everyone joining us today. Thank you to the Virtual Ocean Pavilion for hosting us. And specifically, thank you to the Global Ocean Forum and Plymouth Marine Lab and all the organizers and partners that make this space possible and accessible for friends around the world. Before we begin, I'd like to give you a quick rundown of today's agenda. We'll start with two short presentations to give a baseline understanding of ocean acidification, as well as the challenges and opportunities with creative communications around OA. We will then premiere our 15-minute short film. And following the premiere, we will have a roundtable discussion with the filmmaker, as well as some of the science and policy leaders featured in the film. Finally, we will have some time for a Q&A section from our audience. I hope all that sounds good, so let's get started. I'm honored to start this session with Ms. Natalie Bravo. She is a fisheries biologist that works on biodiversity and ocean acidification from Pedro Ruiz Gallo University in Peru. Natalie is a passionate young leader dedicated to ocean sustainability through research, innovation, and collaboration. She will give us a quick overview on what ocean acidification is and why should we care. The floor is yours, Natalie. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the invitation about the session. So as we were talking about, we are going to discuss very rapidly why is ocean acidification and why should we care. Hear me?
I can hear you. There's a slight
maybe in my camera. So off of that. So let's start by the first thing. What does CO2 do in the ocean? Well, global ocean acidification has been attributed mainly to human-generated CO2 in the atmosphere that has been released by the combustion of fossil fuel and land use changes, agriculture, industry, among others. So when the CO2 enters the ocean through the exchange of gases between the atmosphere and the surface of the ocean, we have a different chain of chemical reactions. So once the CO2 dissolves in seawater, it releases hydrogen ions into the ocean. Over time, as more CO2 enters the water, we get more hydrogen ions that make the water more acidic. And this occurs globally. Also, we have the coastal ocean acidification that, along with the natural process of diffusion of the CO2 gas, we also have local stressors, for example, input of welling of low pH water to the surface, and also land-based pollution from fertilizers, among others. Next slide, please. Then, for example, okay, we know what is ocean acidification, but we want to know what are the threats of ocean acidification. Well, mainly, ocean acidification threatens marine ecosystems because it also affects populations who rely on the ocean as a source of work and also or income and also for diet. More than 3 billion people depend on marine and coastal biodiversity for their livelihoods. As ocean acidification removes carbonate components from the water, animals that need carbonate calcium for their shell growth and reproduction, among other biological processes, are in danger. Also, as the species become compromised, we also get threatened to the food chains or the food webs that sustain other activities, for example, fishing, aquaculture, tourism, among others. This can impact both small coastal communities as well as the big industries. Next one, please. So what are we doing as the scientific community? Well, we have different actors playing globally and also regionally. The most important one is, for example, the Ocean Acidification International Coordination Center that was established in 2012 by the IAEA to focus on science, capacity building, outreach, communication, and also to involve other regions. In 2013, they supported the creation of the Global Ocean Acidification Network, the GOAON, that currently has 11 hubs distributed around the globe and also the Antarctic. And the idea is to collaborate internationally as a network, working to detect and understand the drivers of ocean acidification from coastal areas to open ocean, and also to to generate information to better assess the modeling studies of ocean acidification. Another regional network that is very important now, especially in LATAM, is Remarco. That is a science and also a communication cooperation network that connects 18 countries in Latin America. We also have La OCA, that is one of the hubs of the GOAON, and other partners that also support the OA efforts around the globe are the NGOs, for example, Ocean Foundation, OA Alliance as well. And also locally, you have, for example, local universities and also research institutions in different countries. In Peru, for example, one of them is my university, the Pedro Ruiz Gallo National University, and we also have the Peruvian Institute of the Sea. Next slide, please. And finally, what is ocean acidification research important, not only for me, but only it should be important for you? In my case, I come from a country that is deeply connected to the ocean, that has a rich culinary culture based on fresh food and also in seafood. And I am motivated to understand how ocean acidification could impact on these marine resources, and also how it's going to impact the coastal communities that depend and support the aquaculture, not only of scallops of seafood, but only of fisheries that are a sustain of the Peruvian economy. Also, I really love to involve local actors, international community, and also the research. I started in 2017. I met around the globe amazing people, for example, Jesse, Hula, and everyone involved in this type of efforts are really to be admired. So this is a big opportunity for me to express my gratitude and to maybe invite you to be more questionable about ocean acidification, and it is something that is going to affect everyone. So the idea is to preserve our ocean for now and also for the future. If you like ceviche, you really should be concerned about ocean acidification. And that's my story. Thank you very much. And let's try my camera again.
Thank you so much,
That's it.
Natalie. Thank you. I love that. If you like ceviche, it's true. This is a perfect overview of the issue to help frame up our work at the OA Alliance and the change we're trying to make in addressing this challenge. So, as you can see, ocean acidification is quite a technical and science-heavy issue to work on. Sorry. For me, as a non-scientist and certainly not an ocean chemist, I came to work with the OA Alliance to learn about OA and to help elevate their communications in a way that truly represents the value and scale of their work, as well as the many members and partners who are advancing science and policy leadership in this issue globally. I will give you now a short snippet of my journey as a designer and communicator in the world of ocean acidification, specifically highlighting where we are now, trying to communicate ocean acidification for emotional impact and behavior change. Since its launch in 2016, the main focus of the OA Alliance has been to communicate with policymakers to help advance domestic mitigation, adaptation, and financial support for taking action. Communications was focused on explaining a technical and sometimes obscure issue, trying to show policymakers where OA fits across broader policy landscapes. And while we want to create shiny policy briefs and management recommendations and legal analysis, I realized that if our goal was to instigate urgent action for an ambitious response, we needed a different approach. This meant we needed to go back to basics and ask ourselves, why should people even care about this issue? And what connects and motivates us as humans towards a positive action? And from there is where the Creative Communications program was born. We quickly realized that policymakers are also humans, and focusing on elements that connect and move our emotions was one ingredient that we haven't spent a lot of time on. Our goal with the program is to make the unseen impacts of climate change seen and emotionally felt. Across a growing number of creative communications projects, our objectives are threefold. Firstly, to clearly communicate ocean acidification and explain it within the context of climate change and its multiple impacts, such as ocean warming and oxygen loss. Clearly communicate that climate ocean impacts affect people on a global and a local level, and turn that OA knowledge into action by showcasing the many opportunities for mitigation, preparedness, and response that are happening within our network. But then, why a short film? So, as I started getting more involved in the work by the Alliance and its network, I noticed two things: the amazing people and stories involved in this community, and the fact that few people outside the field knew about their efforts. We were missing the opportunity to share stories about the real consequences and the real people who are making a positive difference. Also, being present in conversations with our members opened my eyes to how real this issue was for them, how tangible the work is that they're doing, and that we actually had in our hands many stories of hope. And one thing that the climate change narrative often lacks is hope and tangible solutions. So now all we needed was a storyteller to help us showcase our work. And that's when I met Monica from Luma at the right time and the right place, which was essential for us. She is a fellow Costa Rican that has dedicated more than 20 years of her career to turning complex content into engaging messages with a special interest in projects of social or environmental value. It was a perfect match. However, we weren't giving her an easy task. We wanted her to explain that ocean acidification is a consequence of carbon emissions, that solutions exist and are being implemented, to describe the global equity issues involved in advancing OA science and policy response, show leadership needed at multiple levels, filming in 3 locations with multiple interviewees with different professional backgrounds. So it was a lot, but despite all of that, and with a humble budget and many ambitions, she took us under her wing. And it was Monica's willingness to champion this effort, plus the wonderful network of people who were generous and willing to share their stories, that allowed us to make this short film a reality. And so, without further ado, this is Changing Waters, Time for Action on Ocean Acidification. It was filmed in Washington State in the United States, in Colombia, and Fiji. This is a character-led short film that shows real individuals from government, indigenous communities, seafood industry, and scientists who are responding to the accelerating impacts of ocean acidification and calling for action at this critical moment for climate policy and financing. So I hope you enjoy it. I will do what I need to do to share it. And yeah, enjoy.
I've lived here in the Bay on the Makah Reservation my whole life. The ocean is so important to us because it's something we've depended on since the beginning of time.
The ocean's everything for the Makah's way of life. It's over 50% of our economy. Close to 100% of every household gets fed through the ocean, and it surrounds us on every side.
Shellfish aquaculture around here is absolutely critical. Washington State leads the country in farm shellfish production. About 15 years ago here at the hatchery, our oyster larvae all started to die. At the same time, good friends of ours, another major hatchery on the Oregon coast, their production was collapsing, their larvae were dying. And so we had a real oyster seed crisis.
Another great example is the razor clam density. A member of the Quinault Nation spoke about how he used to harvest a razor clams his entire life, and grabbing them, nowadays the shell will break. And it's those observations that we as scientists don't necessarily see because we haven't lived it our entire lives, where they have not only their own experiences, but their ancestors' experiences.
The community there alerted us to something that until that point had been an academic science to become an applied science that needed urgent attention.
I mean, initially we didn't understand. We would look in the bottom of our tanks and we'd see dead oyster larvae. We'd put it under the microscope and all we could see is, yup, it was dead. We didn't understand what was causing it. And it took some time. That water we were sucking in from the ocean is some of the most corrosive water they've measured anywhere in the ocean. Oh, by the way, if you can convince the world to stop burning fossil fuels today, all that bad water is still coming our way.
Washington State has really been referred to as a canary in the coal mine when it comes to thinking about ocean acidification. Here's ocean acidification in a nutshell. Since the Industrial Revolution, we've been burning fossil fuels and releasing a mind-blowing amount of CO2 and other greenhouse gases into the air. Our planet's doing its best to cope, which means that the ocean has been absorbing a huge chunk of that extra CO2 for a long time. But when CO2 mixes with seawater, it changes the ocean's chemistry. CO2 makes seawater more acidic. Imagine lemon juice being added to a glass of water. That shift makes it harder for marine life to survive and grow. Think corals, shellfish, and even tiny plankton that feed bigger animals. When they struggle, the whole ocean ecosystem feels it. Also, ocean acidification is not a simple issue. It interacts with many other factors like ocean currents, increasing water temperature, and pollution from land, especially our poop. It's all dynamically interconnected, like a giant shifting mosaic along our coastlines, which makes it challenging to monitor and forecast how it will affect different regions over time. 70% of all ocean acidification knowledge currently comes for and by the United States, Canada, UK, Europe.
I think that's the hard truth, that we in the Pacific, we contribute very little to CO2 emissions, yet, we are at the forefront of the impacts of climate change.
%98 is ocean, 2% is land. Ocean acidification affects the very basis of the biodiversity of the ocean on which we thrive. Our needs are great, but we are not sitting, waiting with a begging bowl, no.
to start doing our monitoring, because we don't have any baseline information, we don't have any baseline data. And so whatever decisions we make, it'll be making them blindly. We establish a monitoring site here in Suva, and so every month we go out to collect samples from the site. And so because of the work that's already happening, it is easy for us to approach the government with the issue. They're very receptive. Fiji is the ocean champion in the region. One of the key things we really wanted to do was see how the monitoring we do can actually inform decisions around our food security. And so we know that there's a pilot project in Reva looking at growing oysters. And so we have approached the community to see whether we can deploy our equipment in the site so that, further down the line, who knows, if something happens, we have the scientific information or the data to try to work out why there may be a problem.
Lo que vemos es un enorme desbalance entre la información que tenemos sobre el hemisferio norte y la que tenemos en el hemisferio sur. Entonces, ese vacío de conocimiento no nos permite tomar las mejores decisiones para proteger los océanos.
Hay lugares que aún en América Latina y el Caribe no han hecho una sola medición de cuál es el sistema de carbonatos de sus aguas, ¿verdad?
La ciudad de Santa Marta es una de nuestras ciudades emblemáticas, tiene unos atributos ambientales únicos, somos un laboratorio perfecto para la investigación en las ciencias del mar.
Esta zona tiene unos arrecifes de coral que hay que protegerlos y la disminución del pH en estas zonas pues genera dificultades para que estos organismos se puedan desarrollar, deteriora estos organismos.
Muchas de estas especies están relacionadas con la seguridad alimentaria de las comunidades, especialmente las comunidades costeras, que en países como los nuestros son las más vulnerables. Entonces es un reto desde el punto de vista de todos nuestros países, no solamente aportar el conocimiento científico, sino que ese conocimiento se convierta en decisiones acertadas, en decisiones responsables. Y adicionalmente, esos fenómenos no reconocen fronteras. Lo que pasa aquí en nuestras aguas lo vamos a ver representado en el vecindario, como llamo yo, en el Caribe, con Venezuela, con Panamá, con Costa Rica, con las islas del Caribe.
Por lo menos en la región de América Latina, lo que estamos haciendo es promover la investigación de esta problemática a nivel regional. Estamos participando 18 países, no estamos haciendo cada uno las cosas por separado, sino que hacemos cosas en común y lo que no puede hacer uno, le ayudamos, cooperamos para que en todos los países tener el mismo tipo de información.
Tenemos un grupo de WhatsApp, de hecho, que pues, nos dicen, hey, mi equipo está fallando, me está pasando esto, a ti te ha pasado, y bueno, siempre estamos ahí continuamente buscando que entre todos podamos sacar adelante. Eso es lo que nos apasiona, ¿no? El tema de acidificación de océanos, cuando empezamos a trabajar esta temática, pues eran pocos los investigadores, y lo que nos enorgullece es que hoy en día hay más investigadores por país trabajando en esto.
Un problema global tiene que haber acciones globales, por eso tiene que distribuirse el conocimiento no solamente a nuestros gobernantes propios de nuestras naciones, sino que tiene que ser un tema global para que se puedan tomar acciones globales.
One of the strengths of Pacific Island countries is collaboration. We work on a regional basis on a lot of issues. Every international meeting or conference or whatever, we try to bring a one Pacific voice.
Without the Pacific Islands, the ocean would never have been part of the SDG. Of the 17 SDGs, SDG 14 was put into that SDG because of the push from Pacific Island countries. Our call is for the world to realize what we are doing. Negligible emitters, but our contribution to climate change solutions is immense. So now, the sad reality is that it is the least funded. And we think that is a direct correlation of because it is the least understood.
Our oceans can also be a solution in how we think about combating climate change, but it's really important to get that policy and get that science in balance so we can do that well. We're really trying to build communities of practice around the world where you're bringing together scientists, policymakers, resource managers who really can take a look at what's happening in different ocean basins around the world and prioritize science for management purpose, science for policy solutions in locations that are localized. We really need more of a global conversation around the investment that needs to be put in to support that work going forward.
I'm really enjoying my time here and being able to represent the indigenous communities and more specifically the Makah tribe. The OA Action Plan is really our key strategies to kind of combat the ocean acidification on our level. We've been stewards of our land and water for so long, and I'm just trying to take that and show Makah as leaders. Hopefully, it can bring indigenous knowledge to Western science and help show an example to the rest of the world.
The Makah people have always looked at life generationally. Our ancestors always practiced in a way that would be best for generations to come. And what I think about when I think of threats to our resources like ocean acidification, it makes me concerned for what it's going to look like for 3, 4, 5 generations down the road. And where do you sit and where is your identity as a tribe?
Ocean acidification is very daunting, but again, there are bright spots as we start to see this regional picture emerge of communities of practice really building science for purpose. And then we also have many solutions, we have many policy frameworks that we can be leveraging now.
Washington State, I think, is a global leader on acidification because the collaborations have fallen into place. This combination of academics and local tribal governments and researchers coming together is, I think, the ingredients that have led to a successful response. Now that we have such an amazing foundation of scientific work, we translate those data and science into public products to make sure that it keeps expanding in public consciousness. Other things that we're focused on at the Department of Ecology are emphasizing the importance of blue carbon in marine ecosystems. And more importantly than that, we're putting a lot of effort into controlling nutrient pollution. That when wastewater ends up putting nitrogen into the waters of Puget Sound and the coast, that nitrogen ends up making acidification worse on top of the burning of fossil fuel.
What type of science do we need to prioritize to make better choices about seafood security, about livelihoods, about job security? And then how do we put that in climate policy?
That plan has gone on to be a blueprint for many other states and other countries.
Even if it seems like a daunting problem, every bit of progress we make matters.
En lo personal me preocupa, pero también es una preocupación responsable. La obligación desde la ciencia de entender cuáles van a ser los impactos y de proponer soluciones.
I really enjoy the policy work. It's exciting to be able to make a difference, but I really miss growing shellfish. So I started my own farm. It reminds me of why I do the policy work. It grounds me. When I go out and work hard on my farm, I can look back and say, oh, look, we harvested 10,000 pounds of clams today, and my body's sore and I hurt, but it's really gratifying because I can see I got something done.
It means a lot to me to be able to pass to my kids what it means to be Makah and what it means to not only harvest resources, but to do it in a manner that's consistent with our traditional core values.
So we are gearing up to fight. We are going to fight all the way till the end. We have no other alternative. This is existential for us, and we are going to keep fighting.
Oh, there you have it. Can you see me? Yes?
Yes, we can see you. Hold on.
Thank you so much. And there we have it. So that's our first ever Oi Alliance short film. Love seeing all the hearts and claps in the emoji. We really look forward to hearing what you guys think. Before we begin the roundtable, I would like to remind everyone watching that we have a Q&A section at the end. So feel free to add your own questions to the chat. We're gonna have a section, but if there's something we don't cover, please add it to the Q&A. My colleague Mariama will be collecting them for us and guiding us on the Q&A section. Now we are lucky enough to have some of the protagonists and the filmmaker with us to share key learnings of the experience in this project and to expand on some points that are covered in the film, but due to time, we cannot go too in depth. So we will start with Mónica Naranjo Shepherd. She is the director of Luma Storytelling. Mónica is joining us from the middle of the ocean. She's on board the RV Falcor 2, if I'm not wrong. A research vessel from the Schmidt Ocean Institute. So in what part of the ocean are you, Mónica, at the moment?
We are off the coast of Uruguay in South America.
Oh, amazing. Lucky. I would love to be there with you. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us.
My pleasure.
So, Mónica, you are an expert storyteller and have built a career focusing on science communications. Do you think ocean acidification was more complicated than other science issues to explain? How is it different or similar to other topics that you have worked on before?
Yeah, I mean, no, in one word, it's not more difficult. I think that might sound strange to say, because we think, oh no, but it's so abstract and it's it's invisible, and so it's super challenging. People don't get it. And yes, I mean, it's a challenge. Any story is, and we have no recipes. There's no recipe for what story will resonate with people and what story won't. But at the end of the day, the story is never about what people think it is. Like people might, the people, you and Jesse, when we first started talking, I'm sure that you were like, this is a story about ocean acidification. But the story is never about that. The story is always about the people that it's affecting, the feelings that they are feeling, the feelings that we want to produce in our audience. What are those stories? Because we need to humanize or at least attach the data to feelings, and feelings become the vehicle for us to be able to share information. But if we think of storytelling as simply a PowerPoint presentation with data that we want to share with people, that is going to miss the target for sure. So it is not more difficult to tell the story about ocean acidification. What's difficult, what's challenging is to find the faces that are willing to be candid, that are willing to share their emotions and their stories with us, and that open their doors for that interaction to occur. The other parallel challenge is convincing those who are hiring you to tell the story that that's the way to tell it, because I feel that in the policy framework, in the NGO atmosphere, in the science arena, we're a little bit shy about bringing entertainment into the conversation, but the human brain responds to entertainment, responds to emotion. We are lazy and getting lazier by the day because of social media. So if we don't bring that which makes us humans, which is the connection, the emotion, then that's not a good start.
Agree. Thank you. Yeah, and actually, before asking you the question, just thank you so much for creating this amazing product.
No, thank you. No. It was a privilege, and it was. I mean, now I have so many new friends. No, it's been an incredible experience. Thank you.
Yeah, and exactly that's what we wanted to do with this creative communications program, to move beyond just rationale and move hearts. And
yes,
we're very used to be like, we're talking to policymakers, we need to tell them, but what to do. It's more like, yeah, but at the end we all connect. We all go down and watch a movie and love, we share that. So
yeah,
agree 100%. I was lucky enough to see you do your magic with this short film in like a year and a half. But for those who haven't, like, what is your normal process for beginning a project like this? What aspects do you need in order to tell an engaging story?
Well, I mean, the first two things that you need is time and resources. I mean, I can tell you about what you need in order to craft a story once you have it. But since we're talking about the space of policy making, of raising awareness, of galvanizing people into action, you need time and resources to just as much as science needs time and resources to produce the knowledge, a story doesn't just happen by accident. The fact that we had so long to get to know the people, even if it was in different parts of the world, the Zoom calls that we would constantly have, the time that we had, the luxury of being then able to physically go to these places is exceptional. Really, it is exceptional. So if you are lucky enough to have that, then honestly, what you just have to sit down and listen to people. I ask a lot of very basic questions, and I ask a lot of emotionally, what's the word, like searching for that emotion and that connection, because at the end of the day, that scientist is studying ocean acidification for a reason. Why is that something that interests them so much? What are the aha moments? What are the, oh my god, this is terrible moments? What are the hope moments? And I am never so interested in the science itself. The science we can explain. The science, that's easy. I am interested in the why would this move us? How could this possibly capture your attention? Especially in times where we are not living in the most positive of times. So if you're gonna talk to them about yet another thing they should be paying attention to, how can you encapsulate that in a good story, hopefully entertaining? So I don't think I actually answered your question. You need time, you need resources, you need people that are willing to open up to you. Once you meet them, you begin collecting little stories, little moments, and then you try to take all that is natural about talking and communicating, try to take it away, because then you need to look at these bits of information and of feelings and of stories and of faces, and begin threading them together in a way that you hope becomes a nice story flow that captures the attention.
No, you did answer my question, and actually, I was expecting for you to say that we didn't have enough time and resources. I'm glad you said that. You were like, we had time.
Oh, well, I mean, we could always have more time. Like, just watching the video now, I'm like, oh, imagine if we could have like showed this other thing, or spoken about this other thing, or go into their houses actually and spend, a week living with them. That's actually like really
We can
getting
ask
into
it.
it. Yeah, but you can always do more, of course. But like a proper documentary film, on average, is gonna take. There's no average, but something like this would take 2 to 3 years of full time in a team, working full time on it. Right? You can always have more resources and more time, but still, this was a luxury.
Nice. I'm glad. Finally, well, what was your personal experience working on this project? Do you have like any reflections you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, well, I mean, a blast. I am sad that it's over. It was, yeah, super lovely. Like when we would meet, we would have problems like using the time of the meeting for the actual project because we became such great friends and we just wanted to like chat and have a coffee together over Zoom. That is something that I don't take for granted. I think these types of connections are really, really special. So that for me on a personal level was lovely. And I just keep seeing time and time again the need that we have, and for that I applaud you for bringing this and putting it on the table, and Jessie for being open to it, and the participants for being open to the experience, because I think that we still have quite a bit of work to do to raise awareness in the people that are creating the knowledge or pushing for change or bringing the policy to the policymakers of the importance of storytelling for everything. And I'm not saying creating a video, I'm saying how you present the information every single time. I think we storytellers, when we are invited towards the end when you have a little bit of budget left, and I don't blame you. Obviously, grants are very difficult to come by, but you have a you know you have a little bit of money, and you have a deliverable on the grant that you created, because now people with money want a component of communication. So it is at that point that they call you and they say, can you please do this in 2 weeks, and we have this amount of money. I think we need to start thinking about communications and bringing an expert in from the get-go, because if not, you're not giving us our best chance to amplify the impact of the knowledge that you're producing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. Of course, I agree. But and then also so many things are unseen, right? That's what happened to me. I came and I saw this gold content that had never been shared. So yeah, thank you so much. It has been an amazing pleasure working with you on this project, and I think it won't be the last one.
Yay! Same. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Stay with us just in case we have some Q&As, right? Okay, so now we're moving on to the Pacific with Dr. Katie Soapi. She's the coordinator for the Pacific Community Center for Ocean Science and Partnerships. Katie, a special thanks to you for joining us. I am aware it is like very, very early in the morning for you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
So, Katie, you are leading the OA Center at Pacific Community. Would you like to share with us like the summarized version of the history of ocean acidification research in the Pacific? How did it begin and where do you think it needs to go?
Yes, Bulavinaka everyone, and warm Pacific greetings. Yeah, so the Ocean Acidification Center, it's based in Fiji with the Pacific Community, or SPC. It was established in 2021 as the region's, Pacific region's kind of hub or center to build capacity, coordination, and support for our scientists. This idea of the center emerged after an earlier project that had distributed some of the go-on monitoring kits to Pacific scientists. And it was very clear very quickly that more work and continuous support was needed when the project ended to provide ongoing training support, technical support, support for the data collection. And otherwise, the whole, investment would have just, a waste. And the idea also was that we really wanted to bring the expertise in the region to support the scientists themselves, because a lot of the expertise at that time was outside of our region, the equipment, all the parts. And so the center was a way of us trying to bring some of the expertise and the support closer into the region. And so with the support of the Ocean Foundation, NOAA and partners like NIWA at the time, University of Otago, University of the South Pacific, we set up the center to provide kind of like a region-wide support to our scientists on ocean acidification. And where we need to go in terms of how I see this, well, this is something that we are starting in the region, and we really need to secure more multi-year funding that could operate this center more as a permanent regional service to our members, because our organization SPC works on members' demands and what they see as priorities. And we also want to work more closely with governments. We've started that with some countries, including Fiji, to try to turn some of the ocean acidification data and how do we turn that into policy? How do we mainstream ocean acidification into strategies, embed it into their ocean plans? We also want to continue at least, the advocacy work that we are doing around this issue in the region on global forums. And then we want to build a community of practice of scientists, policymakers, communities that we are starting to build now. Where we want to go is basically how do we move away just from monitoring to now include biological monitoring that could then be used to assess how ocean acidification is impacting communities, and how do we guide adaptation and how it's impacting people's livelihood. And so this is where in the film you would have seen a community that we've started discussing with, the Reva community, where we've spent a bit of time with them trying to discuss how best the data that we are collecting can also be collected in their oyster farm. This is a women-led project. And so that opportunity with that community enables us to at least integrate the OA science and the measurements we are doing to try to assess how ocean acidification may be, impacting their food security, their livelihood, even their household incomes, should that happen. But at least we would have the data to help with, discussions or adaptation guides and so forth.
Amazing. You guys have many plans. And even though like the research didn't start so long ago, so 2021 is still quite young. In the short film, you mentioned that Fiji is an ocean champion in the region and that the government is receptive to what scientists have to say. Do you think that having OA data in your hands, at least some data in your hands, made this outreach and leadership easier?
Yes, absolutely. I think so. Having ocean acidification data, we have reports that we share with them when the government requests us to provide information on ocean acidification. And so that allows us to work closely with the government on the issue. We have also been able to submit ocean acidification data to the SDG 14 data portal, 14.3 data portal on behalf of Fiji. And so they are aware of that, as this ensures that Fiji is also fulfilling its reporting obligations. But Fiji is not only a regional ocean champion, Fiji is also a global ocean champion. You may remember Fiji, presiding over COP23, and they have consistently elevated ocean issues in climate negotiations. They are part of the high-level panel for sustainable ocean economy. And so the political will is there to accelerate ocean actions. And this is not only domestically, but in the region as a whole. And we see this with ocean acidification, where the science is translated into their policies as well as the regional leadership that Fiji has around oceans.
Yeah, definitely a case study to follow. Thank you so much, Katie. And once again, thank you so much for welcoming us in Fiji and being such a proactive member. We can always count on you and your team. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we also have with us Micah Horwith. Micah is the Ocean Acidification Senior Scientist at the Washington State Department of Ecology. Good morning, Micah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Micah, can you share more about the OA Sentinel site that is referenced in the short film? What is it and why is it important as a model for other areas around the world?
Sure. So the Ocean Acidification Sentinel site is one of these communities of practice that we heard about in the film. So it's a collaboration between tribal governments, state governments, and federal governments to make progress on science management and outreach on ocean acidification. And it's also a really place-based effort. So Washington, like Colombia, like Fiji, has a lot of richness and complication in our geography. We have a big inland sea in Washington state, and we have an outer rocky coast, which is much more sparsely populated and faces different conditions than the inland part that's more populated. And in 2019, we got this designation for a sentinel site on the outer coast, this more remote, rugged area, to bring attention to issues on the Washington outer coast. And so it brought together a lot of different actors, from community members up to representatives of agencies at each of those governmental levels. And I would say we're doing two different things through this, information moving in different directions. One of them is to bring resources and information to the coastal communities and indigenous communities that depend on resources on the coast. So that's making sure the latest data and the latest policy efforts are well known on the coast. And the other is to take information from the coast and make sure that those stories are told to the rest of the state so that there's a good representation. So I think it can serve as a model both in terms of the collaboration we've developed and bringing together partners from many walks of life, and also in this way of making sure that particular geographies in each place are well represented. And in our case, the outer coast, in Washington, if Washington State is a canary in the coal mine for ocean acidification, the outer coast is the canary in the coal mine. It's really the place that would be most early affected by ocean acidification, as deep water from the Pacific Ocean that's corrosive comes to the surface and puts the resources we depend on at risk. So it makes sense for us to be focusing our efforts there.
Thank you so much. I remember the first time I heard about it, and that's when everything started clicking. I was like, it's really impressive to see how the collaboration has made this research and given you guys all this information to now work with. So given that Washington State is ahead like in its monitoring and understanding of oil impacts in the area, have you guys figured out what type of information is the most valuable for governments and decision makers to be aware of? Because it's not the same everywhere, as we've seen in the short film. Not everybody has this history of collaboration and of research. So is there anything that you can share?
Yes, I would say that's still a question that we're figuring out, but Washington State is very lucky to have this scientific infrastructure that now goes back almost 2 decades for measuring ocean acidification, which is not something that most parts of the world have to lean on. So what we're already doing with the information that we have is making sure that the measurements of acidification conditions are incorporated into regular regulatory work so that we can determine when waters in Washington State are impaired by low pH, to potentially take action on that and communicate it to the public. Another is coming up with creative ways to roll together all the data that we collect. So one of those, which we began last year, is an indicator which pulls together all the monitoring data we have into a simple metric that we can push out to the public that gives a really high level overview of acidification conditions in a particular year. And that, I think, is a place for governments and decision makers to start making those decisions by looking at a high level metric and then thinking about what data would make sense at a finer level. So some of the directions that we're hoping to go with information for decision making are to connect with managers of fisheries in particular, so that they can use the environmental data that we're collecting to ensure that the resources they protect are sustained into the future. So that if there's a particular year where there's a lot of stress on their population of salmon or Dungeness crab, if there's high temperatures, low dissolved oxygen, and corrosive water, how do they make it through that bottleneck, that period of stress, and allow for the population to recover so that it can continue to support harvests in the future? And apart from that, we are trying to make sure that the ocean acidification data is a central part of the story around carbon emissions reductions. So Washington is taking action on this, pulling down the amount of carbon that we put into the atmosphere. And we want to make sure the public understands that that has benefits all the way down to the seafloor. So small decisions that limit the amount of CO2 we're putting into the atmosphere have benefits in places that you don't expect.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly that aspect of the fact that it's still not linked to carbon emissions. Also, when I heard us working with the Oil Alliance that this wasn't still a clear link, I was like, well, maybe we should go back to basics and just start just repeating that message in the many ways. So yes, thank you so much. I think Washington State is like an example for all of these areas of work, and that's why the Alliance was born in Washington State. So yeah, thank you so much, Micah.
Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, we have with us Anthony Vitigecco, Natural Resources Policy Analyst from the Maca tribe. Anthony is joining us from Belém, so he's actually at COP right now. Thanks so much, Anthony, for taking out some time from your busy COP schedule to be here with us. Do I have you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Oh, well, yes, no problem. Any reason to get into an air-conditioned room down here, I will take. So.
Oh my God, I bet it's really, really hot. So Anthony, ocean acidification is not invisible to coastal communities such as the Maca tribe. So in the short film, we show a bit of that story. And one of the aspects that stood out for me as I started to get to know the network and the story of the Maca tribe is the proactiveness of the tribe reflected in your OA action plan. So could you please explain to those who don't know what is an OA action plan, what it is, and the process it took to develop it?
Yeah, so an ocean acidification action plan is really a roadmap that helps governments prepare and respond to ocean acidification. And for the Maca tribe, like just for us, it is much more than just a technical document. It's really a tool built kind of using our knowledge and our science, and it's kind of a guide of how we preserve more than just our ocean, but also our treaty rights and our rights to be able to live there. And it's a framework to protect the waters that have taken care of us for so long. And it's just kind of our role and responsibility to also take care of it. And we have a cultural obligation to steward these places that we have inhabited since time immemorial. And did you need me to go in on kind of what our plan focuses on, or would that be helpful?
Yeah, if you can give us a bit more detail on of the focus of your plan.
Yeah, so we really have 6 major strategies, and the first is understanding and monitoring ocean acidification impacts, then reducing emissions and local stressors. The third is restoring natural solutions like kelp, using kelp and eelgrass. The fourth is building community resilience. The fifth is strengthening education and ocean acidification literacy. And finally, the sixth goal is to really engage at regional, national, and international levels to make sure it's, like you said, at the forefront of this climate change. It's a very important aspect that should be spoken about a lot more.
Amazing. And were you part of the process to develop the action plan?
I came in at the very end, so I'm trying to work on the final edit, and it's really a beautiful document. I remember I think I was just about finishing college when they were doing the community meetings. So whenever I was back home, I would hear about it, which was really nice because I didn't come into it brand new. And it was just like that first kind of like our fifth goal of strengthening the education. Really reaching out to the youth was a big portion of that with some of the elders' knowledge. And that's just kind of how the macaw work. We think in generations.
Yeah.
So we really rely on the youth to carry forward the progress. And as I've worked on, so I've spent a few hours editing and going through the fantastic work that the previous policy analysts did and our fantastic fisheries team and all the work at the OA Alliance. It's really a living document that I've seen evolve, and I've seen the process of how it was built. So that was really nice to see. And one of the biggest takeaways I saw, it connects the global climate drivers to our local reality. And ocean acidification is a global issue, and it must be addressed at these international conferences in this global scale. And I'm just glad to be able to kind of present a local reality, put a face to it of somebody who's been affected by it personally, and most of my tribe has been affected by it in some way or another.
Yes. If you have a link that you can share on the chat, please do. Or we can share it afterwards, but I think it's worth sharing it with everyone here. And I love that you mentioned the generational part of the Maca tribe. And you are a young professional. So what type of leadership or mentorship has inspired you to be there and doing what you do? And what would you like to inspire, like the generations coming behind you?
I'm really standing on the shoulder of giants here. They have done so much work to even get us to these tables. And it's truly fascinating on how much hard work and perseverance it really took to get to this stage. And some of the elders that I really looked up to is our director of fisheries and our former director of fisheries and our council members and just elders around the community. My grandfather was a big reason. He's a fisherman. He's fished all his life, and I would fish with him for some summers, and just seeing that kind of effect on people that I deeply care for, it's what really pushed me to learn more about this, and in any way I can help, I'm trying to, and I hope to inspire that with the youth, because if the youth doesn't care about this, they're our future protectors of this planet. So we kind of have to leave that responsibility to them, and having a voice at some of these international conferences or just even being present, being in the room is just the next step to that. Hopefully one day we'll see more indigenous pavilions and coastal community pavilions at these big conferences using a bigger voice. So that's what I hope for the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we hope we're making our part and getting you guys there.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much.
No, thank you, Anthony. This is a perfect and inspiring way of closing this roundtable. I am so grateful for you guys, all of you. Without you guys, this project wouldn't be a reality. And yeah, it has been a pleasure to hear your stories and now being able to share them beyond our Zoom calls and our meetings. So cannot wait for 2026 to share this short film widely. And now we're moving on to the final section. So I think we're good with time. Yes. This section will be led by my colleague Mariama Fofana. She's our communications and project coordinator at the OA Alliance. So Mariama, please let me know, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yes, thank you, Hula, and thank you everyone for this very insightful roundtable. Very excited to be here with you all today. So we're going to move in directly into the first question. Let's see. So this question says, were local communities aware of of OA before the scientific evidence has emerged? And was there any ILK mechanism on how they dealt with changing chemistry of the ocean? And the third part of the question is, how did they respond after OA evidence was presented to them?
Is this addressed for someone specifically?
It is not addressed to anyone specific, but it's just asking about the reaction of communities in general when it comes to OA. So anyone who would like to take that question?
I can start. I think we had two examples of this in the film. One of them from the macaw around the changing nature of razor clam shells. So that was something that was noticed in years past prior to this connection being made between ocean acidification scientists and local communities. And another is what Bill Dewey talked about in the die-off of oyster seed, which at the time shellfish farmers did not understand is related to acidification. So these are places where the local observations of changes in the ecosystem were really important in drawing in the right experts to pinpoint what's driving those changes, make that connection between corrosive water and outcomes for farmers or folks who are harvesting on the coast. And I think we need to continue fostering those connections to understand when people who are spending their whole lives on the ocean notice a change, that comes to the attention of both scientists and policymakers to address, because those of us who are working in our offices and looking at the data every day don't have that ability to be on the water constantly and looking for these changes. So those are my first thoughts on the part of the question.
Thank you, Micah. Would anyone else like to add anything to that question? All right. So then we'll move on with the second question. I believe this one would be more addressed to the OA Alliance, so could be a Hula question. But it is asking, will the video be translated into Spanish, and where can we see it again?
Yes, so we currently have a version with Spanish subtitles, and we can make it available through the link. So maybe Mariama, if you can, it's yeah, we haven't yet translated it fully to Spanish, but it has subtitles. And basically, this is the first time we show it outside of of the production team. So we will spend most of 2026 trying to get it on film festivals and yeah, on other showings within the network regionally. Like, we unfortunately couldn't have Cesar from Colombia, but we will try and promote it in each region. And I think we will eventually, once the premiere passed, and we will make it available on YouTube, and so that everybody can have access to the short film. We have a trailer at the moment on the OA Alliance YouTube. But yeah, that's the plan. But this is our first step towards promoting this project.
All right, thank you, Hula. So moving on to the next question. This is more focused on needing interpretation services for languages that are rare and endangered. So the question goes as follows. Can we implement by policy the use of technical support, for instance, integrating Hawaiian languages, co-page numbers, allowing translations and printing, and equivalent across Pacific Islands, indigenous and non-English speaking nations, also because it is significantly affecting data. So I believe this question came in while Katie was speaking, but it is also not addressed to anyone specific. So anyone is welcome to answer it.
I can try and answer the question. I mean, for ocean acidification for the region, I think as we all know, a lot of the terminologies can be a bit technical, but we have under a previous project in the past tried to translate what OA is. There was a fact sheet that was produced by SPREP, one of our regional organizations, and that was translated into a number of Pacific Island languages. And so they worked with communities to try to interpret what ocean acidification is and what it means, but in the local language. And so some of that is already happening. But again, it takes resources, it takes time, and it also, there are some languages that, are not written, some are oral in the Pacific. And so this is something that we can work on depending on what kind of resources are available.
All right, thank you very much, Katie. So we will move on to the next question. This is a bit more on the science behind ocean acidification. And the question is asking, what is making the Pacific Ocean to become that corrosive? And it is not addressed to anyone specific.
I can briefly answer this, I guess. So as we talked about in the beginning of the hour, what's making the Pacific Ocean and world oceans more corrosive is the increasing concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So as we put that CO2 into the atmosphere through burning fossil fuels and through cutting down forests, wherever the atmosphere comes in contact with the ocean, that extra CO2 is infiltrating into our water. And from there, a lot of different things happen, but in the Pacific Ocean in particular, once that CO2 gets into surface waters, those surface waters can sink down to the deep ocean. And all the way on that path as they're sinking, there is decomposition happening of any organic material in the water. So that puts extra CO2 in the water. And by the time it gets to the ocean floor and starts moving to North America, it becomes quite corrosive. And this is the reason why Washington State was one of the first places to experience the acute effects of acidification, because that deep water that had the initial human carbon dioxide and then the additional carbon dioxide added through decomposition, that water comes up to the surface off of our coast seasonally and produces these periods where there's very corrosive water that comes all the way to the surface that puts our local economies and traditional species at risk. In addition to that, there is a contribution right on the coast of putting nitrogen into the water. So anytime there's a river or a wastewater treatment plant that's putting nitrogen into the water, that causes phytoplankton to bloom. And when they decompose, that's additional carbon dioxide that makes the water more corrosive. So those are a couple of the drivers that are causing Pacific Ocean water to be corrosive.
Thank you for that answer, Micah. So moving on to the next question. This one is specifically addressed to Anthony. Reflecting on Anthony's mentioning that ocean literacy is crucial to OA action plans, how can this be scaled to building political will?
Sorry, could you repeat the last part of that?
Yes,
The political part?
so how can this be scaled to build political will? into taking action for ocean acidification?
So a lot of it is not kind of broad knowledge. So it's not really at the top of the minds of people writing these policies. And that's an unfortunate reality of what's going on. And we're hoping that some of these plans and bringing this to a lot of these conventions will actually, it's kind of we kind of want to become this squeaky wheel that will get grease, if I can put it in a term, to get attention towards this issue. And the way I became more and more versed in this ocean acidification was, like I said, through a lot of community meetings that they were holding to develop this plan. And it really should come from leaders who care. And once you kind of get the ball rolling, once you get the momentum to start, it'll be hard to stop. So as soon as there's more knowledge around it, there will be more action taken about it. So hopefully that answers.
Thank you very much, Anthony. So now this last question would be addressed to everyone. So with your institutional engagement into this short film, what do each one of you hope is the outcome from this short film? And anyone can go first. We'll kind of do a round and yeah.
Well, I
I'm
can
happy to.
start.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
Sorry. I mean, as a filmmaker, my first hope is that anyone that watches the film walks away with something, walks away having learned something, having maybe it ignited their curiosity. So as a filmmaker, my main goal is that hopefully it can impact in whichever way as many people as possible. And then also, I will hope that it becomes a tool that all of the partners and whoever needs it out there can use to support the way they are trying to improve the world. At the end of the day, what we're trying is to make the world a better place for those that are going to come after us. So I keep my fingers crossed that it becomes a tool.
So maybe I can go next. Yeah, for us, the community has been excited to hear about the film. And one of the requests from the Fiji government was to have the film shown to them as well. So that's one of the things we're looking forward to doing. But we also hope that this film can make our work a bit more visible, particularly in the region, so we can connect and engage and really get the buy-in from our members, our country. And as very similar to what Monica said, we hope that this can be a tool for us as well to raise funding for the work that we're doing, but also for the broader public awareness about the issue and what we're doing in the region to address it. Thank you.
I would echo those same statements. Even in Washington State, where there's been a lot of investment in acidification, we still need to do work on outreach and making sure people in the broader public understand that this is a pressing issue and that it's connected to climate change, which they generally hear more about. So this is a really stellar example of kind of pushing us forwards on that communication front. And beyond that, I hope it just continues to emphasize the importance of collaboration, of seeing these regional efforts, of how we can achieve success by bringing actors from the community level to the higher government level together. And metaphorically, I really like this link that one of the daunting things about acidification and climate change is that any adding of CO2 to the atmosphere anywhere in the world affects the rest of the world. So it really requires collective action to address. And that's a hard thing to make progress on. But this film really points to the fact that with all that CO2 mixing in the atmosphere, we're also seeing connections between communities in different parts of the world, learning from each other, taking examples, and with that shared atmosphere and shared ocean, arriving at shared solutions.
And they put a lot of good points out. And the part I can really say is hopefully this film shows how the collaboration around the world. I mean, Monica did a great job of really bridging all these communities to show a common goal. And I mean, I've been hearing a lot about, especially at UNOC and here, how the ocean really is the life source of the planet. I mean, at least for us. And taking care of that really is, and being able to bridge the gap between ocean acidification and climate change and make sure people associate those two, I think is very important. And I feel like this film does a great job at doing that. So, and I hope that that message continues to be shouted from rooftops and everybody knows about it.
Indeed, and that is one of our main missions, shouting it from the rooftop. And thank you again, you all, so much for all of these amazing answers. And with that, I will turn it over to Hula.
Thank you. Oh my God, it has been an honor to hear you guys, and it moves my heart. So it touches my emotions, at least. And yeah, that's exactly why we wanted to create this, to show to the world this work and everything you guys are doing. So it's an honor, and can't wait to show it even more. So thank you so much, Mariama. Thank you so much to everyone joining us today. And a special thank you to the panelists and organizers. We are, as I said, honored to be here, and hope you have enjoyed the short film and this event. So until next time, thank you so much.